From Bishop Ireton High School, it's Real World Wednesdays, a show featuring alumni and friends of the school for the Cardinal community and beyond. I'm Ryan Fannin, Associate Director of Advancement and a member of the BI class of 1989. And on the show today is Blake Bynum, a 2008 graduate of Bishop Ireton who dedicated himself to giving back to the Cardinal community more than a decade after graduating. There are a lot of ways to give back to BI. Some give back monetarily, some give back by hosting events, some give back by offering informational interviews. One of the most impactful ways someone can give back is simply by showing up. It costs nothing monetarily, but often incurs an even bigger cost in time. Blake Bynum is a lifelong Alexandrian and came to Bishop Ireton in the fall of 2004. When he graduated from BI in 2008, I don't think he knew at the time how connected he would remain to the school. Of course, he had built strong friendships, earned a stellar education, and celebrated athletic achievements. But when he received his diploma, he was certainly looking ahead to college and his career. And yet, with a sister still at Bishop Ireton into the late 2010s, he kept the school in his orbit. When his sister graduated on Fannin Field in 2021, he took the opportunity to sit down with Athletic Director Dwayne Bryant to talk shop about the future of the Cardinals on the field and on the court. That initial connection prompted him, as he puts it, put his words into action. Over the coming years, he attended dozens of athletic events at Bishop Ireton. He continued to build relationships with Dwayne and head of school Kathleen McNutt and the BI Alumni Network. It was around this time that I got to know Blake better. From the outset, I could sense his boundless enthusiasm and passion for the school. That passion is shown through to others who have had the chance to talk with him as well. Though he now works full-time as a project manager and owns his own production company, Blake continues to be involved in BI in part thanks to his deep ties to the city of Alexandria and his love of the Cardinals.
I'm born and raised in Alexandria, Virginia. I currently still live in Alexandria, so 703, I guess, totally nothing me. My father still has a law office off Cameron Street in Alexandria, but he's had law offices from North Lee Street to North Pitt Street. So all over Old Town, I've been very just experienced with the Old Town culture and Alexandria, from the Parkway to Richmond Highway, Route 1, all the way to the West End out here. My mother was a corporate business manager for United Airlines, where I remember back in the day, the best way I can describe it, because she always was a manager, but I never knew what she did. But when I'm probably dating myself, but back when Dulles first implemented the e-tickets, where you don't have to go to the counter, you could do it at the kiosk before, she was part of that team to kind of help build that in. So she was had an MBA from Eastern Illinois. Really business oriented, and really helped shape me for kind of my entrepreneurial mind that I have today. So, like I said, born and raised in Alexandria, Virginia. I went to elementary school K through 6 at Aquinas Montessori. I want to give a shout out to Dave Futrell, Uncle Dave, Mr. Dave. If you know, you know. But Aquinas Montessori really got me into my creative confidence by having a lot of plays there. It really exposed me to arts and culture. I learned Greek and Latin at that school from Mrs. Futrell, rest in peace, Miss Kathleen Futrell, the founder of the school. And so it really shaped a lot of things that, made the steps as I move forward in my life kind of all make sense. And then from there, I went to a middle school, Alexandria Country Day off Russell Road. So as I kind of moved away slowly from the Richmond Highway part of Alexandria, I'm getting more towards the Alexandria City part. As you see, where I am from middle school. I had a great 2 years there. They gave me the opportunity to really build confidence in my public speaking. They had this program for 8th graders called, 7th and 8th graders back then, called Speeches and Suites. And it was one of these public speaking events that they held for the students that really just helped shape their students for going forward, for having the confidence to speak in public forums and public spaces. So I really want to give a shout out to Alexandria Country Day for that as well. And then for high school, obviously Bishop Ireton. So I make the full Alexandria circle, going from Aquinas all the way to Bishop Ireton in Alexandria. And I grew up in the Fort Hunt area, right by Carl Sandburg, West Potomac area, right behind the George Washington Parkway. So a lot of friends in that area who went to Ireton with me before, after, and during. So that network from Little League baseball to, rec league basketball carried into high school and kind of just made that family just much more complete.
So you come to Ireton and tell us a little bit about your first memories. You talked about that growing up and experiencing different things, different schools, but what were the early days like at Ireton?
Yeah, the early days were much different than they are today. I'm sure every class can attest to that. But from just a environmental standpoint, when I first got there, I remember my first day because about 7 or 8 of my classmates from ACDS, or Alexandria Country Day, went to Ireton with me. And we were all like in the cafeteria waiting for advisory, or something like 7:45, where all the freshmen are meeting up in like late August. And we're all in the huddle trying to say, this is high school, who's your advisor, how many classes do we have together? And I remember seeing my now good friend, but back then I knew him from a can of paint. His name was Tucker Lucas. He was a new student. And I remember he was standing on the wall and looking down. I'm like, why is this kid looking like he just had no friends? And I can say this so loosely because I was with him for his birthday on Sunday. So we can still, have these jokes, and I'm sure that he wouldn't mind. But I just approached him and said, hey, like, who are you with? Like, what class are you in? Whatever. And I found out that he was a fellow freshman who lived out in Herndon, Virginia. And I couldn't imagine him trekking out from Herndon, Virginia. Like, I just didn't imagine that. As I said before, most of my friends, who I knew from here were from Alexandria. So I couldn't imagine getting on the highway to come to school. Now I think things have changed a lot, but I found out that we had a few classes together. He played varsity football and basketball as a freshman. So from there, our kind of sports love kind of just, or sports bond kind of just grew. And then from there, we had lunch together, and that's where I met my friend Manar. I remember Manar, who helped me with the whole Capitol visit a few months ago, what we did for the basketball team. He approached me and Tucker kind of a similar way that I approached Tucker a few hours before. He said, who are these guys? So he went up to us, and I remember having a carton of chicken tenders and fries, like probably the sorriest looking fries and chicken tenders that I can imagine, for freshmen. And Menard just reached his hand and took the French fries and swallowed them to his mouth, like they were supposed to be his, and I didn't know him at all. Now, me and Tucker looked at each other like, who is this guy I think he is? But from there, we just formed this tripod of friendship. To where we just, to this day, I got off the phone with Manara before I came here. So the bond from, how close it is now started from really irregular moments, or, moments that you wouldn't really think a long-term friendship would start from.
Now, when you think about teachers and coaches that really impacted you, being a 2008 grad of Ireton, looking back, share some stories of that group of folks that really helped you.
I would say 2 coaches for sure. One of them was my track coach my senior year, named Tracy Golden. His son, actually, his name is Tiger Golden. I met him when he was a little kid. He actually has a record here for track, and it doesn't surprise me because his dad was a very tough coach. He was an ex-Marine. And one thing about him, he was no nonsense. He didn't yell. He never raised his voice, but he had this little twitch on his lip whenever he was perturbed, so we knew he was serious. But our workouts were the hardest workouts to this day, and I played football at the collegiate level, the hardest I've ever had in my life. The first days of track usually are big crowds of 70 kids. Then it dwindles down after the first week because they realize this is not going to be a joke. We may have had 5 guys on the team by the time the second week came around. I mean, I can name us all, one hand. It was a really thin, lean team, but he really shaped my leadership skills in that moment. If the freshman who Matt Smith, I want to shout out, he's an attorney now. He's from Fredericksburg, speaking of kids who come on the highway to travel to Alexandria. Matt Smith is an attorney and Morehouse graduate. And I remember like freshman year, he wasn't the best athlete at the time. And he would sometimes lag behind these hard workouts. And as a senior, and my friend Mark Holmes, a fellow junior, he was, we could push through these things a little easier. So our coach would hold us accountable for everything that Matt did. And that really helped us prepare for the next level in a leadership stance. And then also to our football coach my senior year, Tony Verducci. After we had 2 football coaches through my freshman through junior year, and they both left, and we didn't have a coach for our senior year. And it was getting, the parents were getting worried because it was now hitting the summertime, and we had about 22 seniors on the team who were very confident that this was a year that we could actually make some noise and be a successful team. Andrew Rodriguez was a senior. We had plenty of guys who came back who had experience in varsity players, including myself, Darren Gravalesi, Tim Blaine, to name a few, Nick Weber. And from there, we turned into Verducci, who has 4 children, I think, who came through the Ireton program, 2 daughters and 2 sons. He helped us. He said, well, I'll be the coach this year. And it really it put us on exposure to where we had a 2-week training camp at Randolph-Macon College, where we really built our camaraderie and just team bonding, just like I never had before. And it really set the tone for that season. And that was our most successful season to date. So I would say those 2 gentlemen, my track coach, Tracy Golden, and my football coach, Tony Verducci, who were big, influential people.
How did you feel like Ireton prepared you the most for college as you graduated and moved on to Hampton University, a world-renowned, historically Black college and university, and tell us about that early experience there, including playing football at the college level?
Yeah, the schoolwork. I was prepared schoolwork 100%. There was this thing called senior year we had called annotated bibliography. And Mrs. Verducci, our football coach's wife, gave us no passes. So we had to actually do this. And it was something that I struggled with. It wasn't something that came easy to me. I wasn't really sure of the concept at first. And then I just tried to figure it out. And when I finally got my final grade, I got like a B- on it. And most kids got like an A or A-. And I was kind of folding my paper like, I hope no one, makes fun of me too much for getting a B- on this year-long project. But things like that at Ireton really helped me when I got to college, when one of our earlier tasks were do a 1-page paper single-spaced, or do a 2-page paper and cite your sources, incite sources. Those, to me, were second nature from sophomore year taking college prep, at Bishop Ireton. So, but I only noticed it when my friends and other classmates at the time were struggling with that, and they're from all different parts of the country, private school, public school, and they were kind of not doing this in a day, as I was kind of, used to saying, this isn't that strenuous. I could do this in a day or 2 and kind of just go to the library and knock this out in a few hours, when they were seemingly having a little more trouble with it at first. And I said, this must be from the rigorous work that I had at Bishop Ireton that makes this transition a lot easier. So from a school standpoint, I don't think this transition was very hard. Now for college, that's the big, focus thing, you know what I mean? And so luckily with Ireton as well, playing sports, as well as being involved in that rigorous program academically, it really tells me how to balance my work. And it really shows me how to do my time management skills and improve on those. And so when I was in college, I didn't really have an issue with time management because I perfected them here. And so usually I got my best grades in season. When I was kind of out of season, if I didn't play basketball in the wintertime, my grades may slack a little bit according to my father. But in the springtime, when track comes, or in the fall, when football comes, and I'm focused on, practice, homework, sleep, school, practice, homework, sleep, kind of getting in that routine, my grades shot up. So I definitely feel like there's a benefit to that, both levels.
You graduated with honors from Hampton University with a Bachelor of Science in Business Management, and then following college, what was your career path? What did you vision coming out of Hampton that was going to be your next step?
I didn't know it. Yeah, I didn't know it at all. I wanted to be an entrepreneur, as I said in air quotes, as my mother kind of instilled that into me. Even though she never ran her own business, I knew what that corporate hustle looked like, and I knew how I didn't necessarily want that. And then I saw how my father, who was an attorney, had his own law firm, but he was a 2-person law firm. It wasn't like he had 6 or 7 attorneys under him in a big office in DC. Small converted townhouse that's now an office, on Cameron Street. And now you kind of, get out the mud. And so you saw that grind as well. And so kind of the fusion of both worlds kind of had me saying, well, I could do the corporate world because I think I could be good at that and have a skill set for that. but also I want to show kind of what my skill set is, and find my voice, and then show that and use these skills to kind of intertwine both worlds. So I really wanted to figure that out. And for like the first 4 or 5 months after college, I was still trying to figure it out. I was living in my father's basement. I was sending my resumes everywhere. And my experience was internships a lot. And there were a lot of, DC internships. But in 2012, a lot of jobs were hiring only those from within who weren't really going back to college and saying, hey, come back here, and, we'll hold a position for you in September, as it may have been before, or it may be now, or I just didn't do a good enough job. I don't know. But so I then realized that, I started a vending company, a vending machine business where I leased vending machines and put them at different establishments. And I would work with I had them at Residence Inn Hotel, at the National Harbor, a few hair salons, in a Alexandria Union Cab. So I had about 4 locations. I had 6 machines in total, operating for about a year and a half. As I struggled through that process, I learned how to get better at business. So I think it now shaped and prepared me now for what I'm doing. So where now I'm like, okay, 10, 12 years later, those mistakes that I made earlier, I now know how to, they're much more polished now. And I can move in a much more successful way, hopefully.
I know you're currently balancing full-time work at a consulting firm with owning your own film company, Rainwood Media Group. How do you approach the necessity of that full-time job with your passion for film and media?
It's because I have a passion for both. I really liked my first job in corporate. When I first did get that corporate job, it was in acquisition procurement at the USDA. And I knew nothing about government contracting at this point. I heard about it being in this area, but not really knowing the insights of it. But then I really got into it within the first 4 to 6 months. And our director had this amazing opportunity for us to travel to Tanzania, Africa, which was supposed to be for 3 weeks, to basically assist the contract specialists at their embassy, who were local contract specialists, and kind of how we do things at the American embassy, and how American acquisition and contract support can aid them in how they build contracts and things such as the irrigation system, things such as water pipelines, all things that they need, infrastructure that they need. And America, they thought, could provide more assistance for that. So that 2 weeks turned into 4 months when I was out there. But that's where I really fell in love with procurement, contracting in that space. And as I grew in that, I knew that there were a lot of transferable skills from that procurement acquisition piece of my life to now my film piece in my life, to where, as a director, it's, treat everything like a project. There's beginning, middle, and end. There's stakeholders you have to speak with and, negotiate with, and budgets have to be set. And when things don't go as planned, you have to figure out how to, make this whole thing work and clean the whole thing up, and deviate from things that may have been there, but then due to lack of resources aren't there anymore. So it really just helps from just what my passions are, but also to what I'm good at.
And so many students today that don't know what they want to do yet, I think it's great to hear from folks that say, you know what, that's okay.
Yeah.
And elaborate on that a little bit, because I think so much today, well, what are you going to do?
Yep.
They're just in high school, or they're just in college. And I say just in the fact that, like, you want to be very serious during that time, of course, but you also, there's a lot of pressure in the world on youth today, and it's okay not to know. Talk about that, because you're a perfect example where you took your time with it and it helped you develop your passions, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. I will say that I am blessed as well. That I had a father who let me live in his basement as I was trying to figure it out, and everyone has that same grace. So I want to first start by saying that, but also too, there's so much pressure on these kids now to perform and be what they're going to be based on, I don't want to sound old, but like based on the internet and social media. A lot of times that people say that if they're not ranked this position, whether in the classroom or on the field, they feel like that is a outward validation of whether they'll be good or not, whether they're worth pursuing this college dream, whether it's worth pursuing this thing because odds you're not going to make it. Well, if that's the case, why are we pursuing anything? Everyone's here to, for various reasons. Everyone's here at Bishop Ireton for
their own journey, right?
Their own journey. And they're trying to figure it out. And Ireton will help you figure it out in a sense, but end of the day, it's up to you. And Ireton really gives you the creativity and freedom to kind of figure it out because of the people around here and the network in the school, to where I was talking to a lot of students, my friends, and like, what does your dad do? What does your mom do? Or like, how'd you get here? Because I was a very curious person in high school, just asking a lot of questions, like, how do you guys do that? How does that work? And a lot of times, through various jobs or pathways they got here, it was all hard work and persistence.
Let's talk now about the Alumni World at Ireton. And because this is something that, every day I get a chance to interact with so many of our alumni. And in the last couple of years, so many of us here have just been so inspired by how excited you are about everything happening at Ireton and how much you want to try to be involved. And whether it was planning for your 15-year reunion for your class of 2008, it was your sister having graduated in 2021 in a conversation you had with Director of Athletics, Dwayne Bryan. And maybe we'll stop right there. Come in right there and talk about what got you to really jump in and be as excited and dedicated as any of our young alumni have been in a long time the last couple of years. So first of all, thank you for your great Cardinal spirit, Blake.
Of course. I want to win. I want to win in all sports. I've been around here too long to where I've seen this cycle where St. John's has their moments, Gonzaga has their moments, Seton has their moments, O'Connell, Paul Six has their moments. We need to have our moment consistently. And I feel like when they think about Ireton, they scoff at everything except for maybe one or two sports. And I'm a big sports fanatic, but I watch sports from baseball all the way to basketball to women's volleyball on ESPN2 on Saturday mornings. I'm just a big fan of it all, and I love the school so much to where I want us to at least be competitive in a way to where we don't have to become a factory, to where we have these kids who don't even live in a 200-mile radius of Bishop Ireton coming over here and then just kind of using the school for its resources and leaving nothing else. But it's more so saying there's a standard here, because there is academically, and there's a standard here athletically as well. And I know other schools who are known for their strong academics have the same thing athletically. And they're, I'm not going to shout them out because, this is Ireton podcast, but there are definitely schools in the area who make a decision saying, hey, we know that sports really helps the student body come together. It really brings people, it puts everybody in a good mood. And every school from Duke to UVA to, Penn State, they all feel that same camaraderie all over the country. And Ireton may not have the reach to where all over the country. Now, if I meet somebody in San Diego with Ireton hat on, win or lose, I'm going to definitely acknowledge them. But if it's just, in the area at different sporting events, at different community events, you see the Ireton hoodie worn, or see Ireton athletics hat being worn. It just shows that, okay, there's a standard there, and I'm proud to be a part of that standard. And I already am. And one of the conversations that I had with Dwayne was that, what is your plan to make us consistently a winner? And we play in a really, really, really competitive conference, not just in basketball, but in baseball. We played in football and girls lacrosse. It's tough. I want a few championships in this decade. Going to come. I wanted to see us hosting a tournament on ESPN, or ESPN comes here because they said we are the top 5 lacrosse player in the country, or the best catcher in the country, or the Orioles are coming here to scout our second baseman. I want to see all that, because Ireton has the same pool of kids. We pull from the same kids that these other schools pull from, because every major conference, except for maybe the West Coast ones, come to the DMV to get their talent. They all at least stop by and see, what do we have here? And Ireton should definitely be a place where they stop and say, oh, I got to give me a Cardinal. I got to give me one.
I think back to homecoming Saturday. Ireton beats Paul VI in an unbelievable football game. There is parents of alumni, students, friends of the school, all the constituents you can think of on this beautiful Saturday afternoon in October. Ireton gets the win, and over at Glory Days, just about a block and a half from Ireton, the class of 68 is celebrating their 55-year reunion. And I walk in and you're grabbing some food, and you and I, who had been connecting in recent years, and we just said, that was it. That atmosphere and getting that kind of win, and the team winning 7 games. And that's where it's so much more than the wins and the losses. It's when you do win, it really helps just build a lot of things that get you that momentum that can lead into great school spirit out of the gates in the fall that football teams can bring. That was a special day, wasn't it? What was your memory of that day here?
Yeah, a packed crowd, and there's nothing like beating PVI. There's nothing like beating...
Except maybe beating O'Connell?
Yeah. Them and Gonzaga in basketball. But yeah, politics is another one. Similar demographics in regards to where we're located and school size-wise, but also too, they've been a rival to me since 2004, my freshman year. My first football game was against PVI when I watched as a freshman. It was the same environment, and we won. And so to bring it back, 18 years later from that, it was amazing because 19 years from that. It was amazing because that's what I want to see. Every Saturday morning, I wish we had lights here. But every Saturday, packed house, you feel the energy. The Cardinal crazies are out there, the mascots out there, and the football team gets the juice from there. I've been on those teams where we were 1-9, we were 3-7, and it's like we have a game today, and it's like, okay, I may go, but when everyone's looking forward to going, it makes just that Monday, that Victory Monday, so much more sweet.
And when you think about the Diocese of Arlington and the 4 high schools, and with Paul VI and Bishop O'Connell and Bishop Ireton and John Paul the Great, these are outstanding high schools, but yet that competitive spirit of wanting to go out and win, I think it's what makes it a special rivalry, even more so, because we do all support each other within the Diocese of Arlington in so many ways.
Oh, yeah.
But it's that competition because life's competitive. You want to go out and you want to be able to have those successful years like this year where the Cardinals were fortunate enough to beat all the other 3 diocesan schools in the Diocese of Arlington. It was a special year for them.
It really was.
You've gotten involved in the BI Athletic Booster Program. You've supported a lot of the events in person, and you came up with an idea along with a few others. Share the story you mentioned earlier when you said the Capitol visit.
Yeah.
Tell us about the idea, how it came about, and this incredible opportunity that you help put together for Bishop Ireton student athletes in the boys and girls basketball programs.
Yeah. Also, I can complain all I want to. We want to win. I can go into, Coach Dwayne's office and say, yeah, what are you going to do? But I got to put my money where my mouth is and put action to. I can't just sit back and say they're doing nothing and I'm just complacent. I don't like people like that, and I can't be hypocrite and do that exact thing. So, as I said, Menard Hanna, good friend of mine from Ireton, he knows my vision in regard to sports and then my love for Ireton. Let's marry the two, but also he's one of those people I never thought would be as successful as he is now. When I first met him, he was not abiding by the dress code. He had a pink undershirt, he had Tim's on and a New York Yankees hat, right? And I was like, I thought Ireton had a dress code. I'm wearing my shoes and my, shirt tucked in, and my and he just, he eventually, of course, abided by it, but he was always just, giving people kind of a hard time. But everyone loved him. He was never a kind of guy who was any malicious intent. Everyone loved his mother. His sister went here, so the Hanna name is strong, and he's definitely loved by the Ireton community. But he was. Our friendship kind of was like that. So as we see the progression now to where he's working for a senator in the Capitol, I said, hey, let's find a way to marry these two. The Ireton boys and girls varsity team, it's a team, they're 2 teams that aren't big enough as big enough in size to where we can logistically make this work. The football team may be a little too big. Baseball's kind of out of season. Let's do right before the winter starts, and let's give a private tour of the U.S. Capitol to these students. And it really shows them that sports is great, but sports are not going to be here forever. Eventually, you're going to sit on the couch and you're going to watch the game, you know, the TV, like all of us will. So eventually, your career will be over. But what I really want to shape for these students and athletes and let them know that, you know, with there being a standard of winning and excellence here, also there's one for worldview, being a diverse student, being somebody who sees different cultures. A lot of these kids are from this area and have never been to these buildings. Not because they don't want to or they don't have time a lot of times. A lot of times they're doing all these extracurricular activities and they get so caught up in life because of the pressure that's on them to be as successful as you can right now because there's somebody else trying to take your spot. It's like, well, also too, you know, like you live in the greatest city in the world. And I feel like it was really cool to have two alumni who really show that we care about you, not just in a athletic standpoint, but as a person. And this is a way for you guys to get an educational opportunity to see one of the most beautiful buildings in the world during the day in action. And really, you know, hopefully ace your next civics test.
February, we're celebrating Black History Month, and I'd like to get your thoughts on Bishop Ireton's commitment to diversity with the development of a diversity council, the hiring of a director of diversity in Milton Powell, and a lot of the great things that are happening on that front here with the great leadership overall in the school, of course, of head of school Kathleen McNutt, and just get some of your thoughts on all those exciting things happening from that perspective.
Yeah, I was I had the pleasure of meeting Milton for the first time at my 15-year reunion here. And he introduced himself out of the bookstore, and we were talking, and he introduced himself as the diversity director. And I was shocked because when I was here, you know, like we didn't have one. And that just shows me the change from 2008 to now that, okay, Ireton said there is a change in the world. We aren't just stuck back in the 80s, 70s, and 60s. Alexandria is a diverse city, and we're going to be at a school at the top of the hill on Duke Street. We have to represent what our town and our city is. And I think Ireton has done a great job with that. And I feel like, you know, a lot of schools can say it's performative from their aspect, but actually doing it and having the numbers reflect as such. There are many times when I come to Ireton or have other alumni tour the campus, and they're like, wow, you know, I didn't know Ireton. I'm like, yeah, it's changed a lot. It's changed in a good way. Just the reins that Ireton has shown to say, we're committed to this, really shows me as an alumni that, okay, this makes sense. And it's real, it's genuine. It isn't anything that's, you know, forced.
You know, as I listen to you talk and being an 08 grad, and I'm an 89 grad of Ireton, and when I talk to folks all the time and I say, you know, Ireton, since I got here as a freshman in 85, from leadership, facilities, spirit, it's never had the momentum that it has right now.
I agree. Yeah.
But yet that desire to even go to that next level that I know every day the leaders of this school embrace, that's what takes a school that's on an incredible rise right now and takes it to even the next level.
Absolutely.
Is having alumni, young alumni, older alumni care and get involved.
Absolutely.
And what do you think it's been for you that's made it so inspiring to get back involved? And alumni that are maybe listening to this podcast that say, you know what, I do love Ireton, but I haven't been involved.
Or like, what can I do to get involved? Yeah.
Right. And we give a lot of avenues for folks to come back, but you've got to have that want to really be involved. And maybe to close, just talk about what that difference is. It just like you said, coming back to games and calling fellow graduates and saying, come to our reunion. What is it you think that will continue to, from your perspective, see Ireton on this great rise that it's currently on?
I feel like a lot of times, you know, I had to reflect a lot and see like, all right, where am I at in my life? You know, and what I kind of want my imprint to be as I'm entering my 30s. And I would say to my fellow alum, of Ireton, you know, it may not be the perfect time. People have, you know, I don't have any kids right now. I'm not married yet. So it's one of those things where I may have a little more time than somebody else. And I live locally. I live about 3 miles away from the campus. So it made me be a little easier for me. But there's so many lives that can be changed from just basically showing up. And a lot of times you may not have to know their name. They don't have to know you, but they know that, oh, they went here? And that 14-year-old, that 17-year-old, that 20-year-old who went to BI, who met you somewhere else, could say that this is, this changed my life. I mean, I'll give you a little example. There's a student here named Josh Reed. He graduated in 2013. But Mrs. She wasn't even my guidance counselor, but she still works here, Mrs. Nicole DiLorenzo. One day she messaged me on Facebook when I was in college, and she said, "Hey Blake, there's this guy here who's thinking of applying to Hampton University, and I know you went there, and so do you want to, just connect with him?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." So we connected. I graduated. He came to Hampton the following year. I think he was in the band, and he pledged a frat. And so we never really talked like that, but I just saw him on Facebook. And then this 15-year homecoming, I saw him there. And still not having his number, still just Facebook friends, from since 2013, from that one introduction. We just gave each other a big hug, like we knew each other for this long time. Now I've known since he's on Facebook that he's in aviation. He's a pilot. And my father is very involved with his fraternity, his Kappa League, on North Kings Highway in Alexandria at the Kappa House, where they have this outreach program to Black and brown students for aviation. They've been featured on locally on like Channel 9 and like CBS, NBC locally. So that spark was like, "Hey Josh, would you want to talk to my dad's, young kids about aviation since you're a pilot and this whole thing?" Within like 3 days, he went over there and spoke with the kids, and he told that day. He told I remember in the cafeteria. I remember he told you that day. He said, "Blake is the reason why I went to Hampton." And I didn't know this at all. And I was like, wow, like I've never even met you before. And he said, "You're the reason why I went to Hampton." And I was like, wow, like I was just taken back by that. And I think that's kind of brings it all full circle to where it's like, I'm really able to leave an impact on somebody, and not just me, but plenty of students. I mean, there's a plaque of Andrew Rodriguez here. If he came back, this is a pitch to Andrew. If he came back to Ireton and spoke to a few students here, I mean, the stories that he could be able to tell, from why he came to Ireton because he was a military kid, to him almost leaving Ireton our junior year because he had to move, and our football season was on the line because number 9 was leaving. So we had like that whole story, to how he, now just won the academic Heisman at Army, to all that stuff, and how him coming back to change the life of somebody else. And there's so many avenues and stories like that, not just from myself, but I'm sure from plenty of alumni who just chose to say, "Hey, me not even doing anything monetarily, but showing up to a football game and say, 'Hey, I see you guys, win or lose.'" It really helps the spirit of the Ireton Cardinal.
To close out, Blake, I wanted to go big picture here. What do you hope for the future of Bishop Ireton, and how do you see yourself staying involved and getting others involved as well? And why is it ultimately important from your perspective?
I really want us to be the premier school in the DC region. I know with presidents' daughters and kids go to certain schools in DC. I would like for that to be Ireton one day. I'd like for Ireton to be one of those outstanding academic and athletic institutions, to where when your kid, I know the graduation rate here is amazing, so it's really hard to improve upon that. You know what I mean? But and there's only so many kids you can have in the school, But I would just say being that premier, just high school in the area. And my involvement is, every chance I get, if I see any parent with a 12-year-old or 13-year-old or 14-year-old, where are they in high school? Oh, where do you guys live? Anyone live near Alexandria? Work in DC? Just to kind of gauge, because I always recommend my former schools to people in the community, whether I'm at a car wash or I'm at a drive-through. So it's my involvement is to stay active in that part, but also to keep contributing to the athletic program and keep providing those opportunities, outside of sports, to the athletes and to regular students in certain programs here. I know there's African American histories or elective for some students here. I love to take them to like the African American History Museum, and they don't have to all be, Black and brown students, but those students who are interested in just learning more about the history of Black people in this country. And there's a museum 5 miles away. You know what I mean? It could be a 5 hour trip, and then all of a sudden it turns into like they see, they take from what class is and they see a whole different light on it than what the teacher is saying. And the conversation picks up, and now their perspective can change. And so from that point of view, me instilling those with my friends who are alum, who are still in the area, to kind of say, hey, what opportunities do you have that we can give to these students besides just going to the basketball game and supporting, which is great, but also doing things to, shape them to a better human being, hopefully.
That's Blake Bynum, Bishop Ireton class of 2008, who is living out the Cardinal call to help current students, future students, and the alumni community to advance always. I'm Ryan Fannin, and you've been listening to Bishop Ireton's Real World Wednesdays.